On today's episode of the Budget Crawler Project, we finally finish up this freaking rear bumper. So after getting the bumper painted up and letting the paint dry for a week or two, we finally got this thing mounted to the rear of the Jeep. And today we're moving on to the tire carrier. So we've already got the latch off here. 3 out of the 4 bolts that hold it on came out no problem. This one snapped. Well, this one actually snapped first, and then I used a whole bunch of heat on the other ones to get them out. So I'm going to have to drill and tap that one. We got to pull the bolts off of here so we can get that painted and find one more the correct size. This pin right here, I think is supposed to go up and down as this thing pivots, because that's the hinge right there. As this thing pivots out, that pin is somehow supposed to hold this in place so that when we swing this out, it doesn't swing back at us when we're getting access to the back end of the Jeep. Not really sure how that works, so I'm going to have to figure out how that works because it's pretty seized up right now. It's either going to involve a lot of pounding or a lot of pressure from a ball joint press or something like that. Try to get that thing moving, and then we have bearings in here that we need to replace, which should be a lot of fun considering all the rust that's in there. The way this tire carrier was set up when I got it is that there were 2 sealed ball bearings with no balls left inside of them. They were so rusted out and worn out. This is pretty much all that's left is the outer race, and that's what was on there. Now I could replace these in kind with more sealed ball bearings, but I'm actually going to use these tapered roller bearings instead, which I think are a little better for this application. The only thing about these is that obviously they're not sealed, and normally when you use these there'll be a grease seal that sits underneath the bearing. So if we have the bearing sitting on here, there would be a grease seal underneath it to keep water out and keep grease in. But the tire carrier fits on here so tight that I'm not able to fit one of those, so we'll see what the longevity of these is, but I'm going to run with these for now and see how they work out. So what I came up with to get this whole thing together is we're going to have a spacer right here. And that's just like a 2-inch outer diameter washer that I drilled out the middle of to fit around this post. And we're going to have the bearing. And there's a race that sits on the bearing. And the tire carrier will go on, and we'll have this same sandwich just flipped the other way on the top, with another bearing up here. The carrier will hold that in place, and then we'll have a nut that goes on the top, and then we'll put a cap on that. So I'm going to go grease up these bearings with some wheel bearing grease, and then I'll get the tire carrier on and we'll keep going from there. And here we are. Aside from a few parts I'm waiting on in the mail, this is pretty much the final product here. We got everything bolted back up, and the only things that we're missing are number 1, a cap for this, which is in the mail. It should be in about a week. Then I've got another latch coming in because this one, the U-bolt broke, and I had a hard time finding a new U-bolt, so that was the right size, so I just went ahead and ordered a new latch. Just got a piece of wire in there holding this thing shut for now. And then we got to find a few more bolts to throw in here. Actually, I think I've got 2 good bolts. There was one that was missing, so I need to find one more bolt for the spare tire carrier, and that'll pretty much be it there, and our bumper will be complete. Now, one thing I had said in the beginning of the video was that I wanted to use this as an air tank, and that is no longer in the picture, mostly because I put so many holes in this. I've got 2 holes on each side where the bumper mounts to the frame. And once I drop the gas tank, which I will eventually do, I'm going to put 2 more holes, one on each side, bolting the bumper onto the frame at another location. So that will be 6 holes total on the back side. Then we've got this little bumper here that the arm sits on. That has 2 more holes. So there's 8 total. And then this plate right here for the swing out. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention is I got to get a pin for that, so that'll be another thing we got to get. But then this plate right here was originally welded on, but there was a lot of rust under there, and I figured if I welded it back on, then it's just going to rust again. So I used bolts instead of welds, so that this plate can be taken off and serviced if there is rust forming underneath. So there are 2 more holes. We've got 10 holes in this bumper that I would have to seal up, make sure they're perfectly sealed and stay sealed, and I just don't want to chase those leaks down. So we're going to have to find another solution for an air tank. And no less than a month later, our latch finally came in off the boat from China, and our bumper is more or less complete. So just as a little recap here, we started with the base right here in this swing out portion, then I added these little lengthening pieces here to help protect the corner of the body some. So I think those came out pretty nice, and I think they'll do a pretty good job if we come off a rock or something and it tries to kick up this way, or if we run over a log, just to keep this corner of the body protected since I'm not running any body armor right now. Eventually I'll put full corner guards on here and this will kind of become irrelevant, but in the meantime it's nice to have this. Obviously we've got the D-ring mounts and the 2-inch receiver that were on here when we got this thing. New latch. This bumper does have a built-in high lift mount, which I will eventually utilize. That was on there when I got it. The hinge right here, we removed the ball bearings and put in tapered roller bearings like you'd find in a trailer axle, and I think that's better suited for this application anyway. But the problem we ended up having with that was that there was no way to cap the bearings, so it was just basically the top of the bearing was up here. So I went ahead and picked up a like a vinyl cap that just slid right over the top of this post. Fits quite nicely, and that will keep the water out. And then we also replaced the pin right here that keeps the swing out in place. So this plate here used to be welded on. I cut off the welds and used bolts because chances are it's going to rust in between there at some point, and I'd like to be able to take it off, clean up the rust, get it freshly painted up again, and that will be much more easy to do with bolts on there instead of welds. Then, like I said, we replaced this pin. It was just a stainless steel 1/2-inch diameter, 4-inch long pin that I got off of eBay. And then obviously we extended the other side, just the same as we did on the driver's side, to help protect against debris coming off the back of the tire. And pretty much sums it up here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You'll notice that we don't have a third brake light anymore, which I will eventually take care of, but this isn't really a daily driver Jeep for me, so I'm not too concerned about it at this point. But that will be another episode coming shortly, well, probably within the next few months, where I take care of a third brake light situation on there. I don't have a full-size spare. The set of tires that I bought, 33, 12.5, 15s, only had 4 in the set, so I'll have to find a full-size spare to go on here, now that we actually have somewhere to mount it to. And that pretty much wraps up our rear-end modifications here. And of course, it's that time in the video where we talk about price. So our previous total from the last episode was $2,817.55. And today we added some paint and primer. So I think I used a little over a can or so, maybe a can and a half of etching primer. And then 5 or 6 cans of just regular Rust-Oleum spray paint, which totaled out at $29.70. Hardware, so all the bolts that hold the bumper to the body, hold our frame tie-ins to the frame. Anywhere that there's a bolt or a nut or a washer is included in the hardware cost. That came out to $16.64. Now, I've mentioned in previous episodes, I usually get my coarse-threaded standard bolts from Tractor Supply, which I've found to be the most reasonable place to buy these kinds of bolts, which is why that total is not something like $30 or $40 if I had bought them individually packaged down at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. And so moving on, we've got tire carrier bearings. Those were the tapered roller bearings with the races. Those were $8.95 off of eBay, shipped to my door. We got the tire carrier latch. That was $11.82, shipped to my door, straight from China. The tire carrier pin, so that stainless steel pin that locks a tire carrier in place when we open it, that was $5.87. And then the tire carrier hinge cap. I ended up buying a 4-pack of those because I'm sure at some point I will end up losing that cap and have to replace it. So I'm just going to include the price of all 4 caps, assuming that I don't go through those 4. That price shouldn't go any higher, but the price for 4 was $13.77, bringing our grand total for this episode up to $86.75. And in turn brings our total cost for the build to date up to $2,904.30, all in purchase price of the vehicle included. Now, this number is relatively low for how much we've got into this Jeep so far, but the trade-off is really time. So I've spent a lot of time on this Jeep, a lot of time doing things that save money, building my own parts, modifying my own parts, which I do enjoy, but the trade-off is really time. We would be a lot further along in this build had I been buying parts that were already complete, had been buying parts that didn't need to be modified, and I think we would have pretty close to a quote-unquote finished Jeep at this point. So I just kind of want to point that out there, that yes, we are saving money, but on the flip side, we are losing a lot of time. So it's something to consider. Like I said, I do enjoy doing this kind of stuff, but it does make for slow going. So anyway, we'll see you on the next episode, and thanks for watching.